Hello, I'm Pastor Paul. Welcome to the Lord of Life Lutheran Church Sermon Podcast. We're glad you're here. We know that you can't always be in worship with us, so we're glad to provide the sermons from our weekly services. We hope that you will find hope and inspiration as we have in Jesus Christ. And now, here's this week's message. The Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he was famished. The tempter came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But he answered, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and placed him on the pinnacle of the temple, saying to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and on their hands they will bear you up, so that you will not dash your foot against a stone." Jesus said to him, "Again, it is written, do not put the Lord your God to the test." Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. And he said to him, "All these I will give you, if you will fall down and worship me." Jesus said to him, "Away with you, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him." And the devil left him, and suddenly angels came and waited on him. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. You may be seated. So, as I mentioned, today we have something a little different for our sermon time. And I think it's important for us to hear different voices and to stretch ourselves a little bit to hear the gospel in different ways. And so, I invite you today to participate with an open mind and open ears and an open heart, and listen for how God might speak to you. And so, with that, action.
Thanks, Paul. It's a pleasure to be with you here this morning. You have a lovely place of worship, and the people who I talked to this morning genuinely seem like good people. And I do admit that it's always a little bit uncomfortable coming to a church or a synagogue. But if I'm being honest, and, well, that's what you good religious folks are supposed to be, right? I'm not the one that causes the discomfort. You are, not me. No way, not me. For some reason, you think that the devil can't come in and visit your fine establishments, and that somehow these walls create some sort of pure barrier or holy barrier that can hold out me and my magnificent efforts in the world. Believe me, well, you probably don't want to do that. But trust me, that won't work either. Regardless, I know that all of you human beings inside of these walls are just as pliable and gullible as the whole pack wandering around outside. The whole pack of humanity is lost. My finest work. If you won't believe me or trust me, then let me show you. You just have to pay close attention. You see, since time began, the other side, God, or whatever you want to call him, or her, whatever. The other side and I have been playing a delightful little game with all of you, but I suppose you wouldn't consider it a game. But for me, it's the height of entertainment. Speaking as a demon of some experience, this is how it's played. God gives you the guidance through prophets and sages and angels. Then I take those words and I twist them around until you start doing the very things God told you not to do. Clever, isn't it? You watch your religious leaders and theologians and scholars disagree over the same words. Pastors and rabbis battle over interpretation. No wonder you animals have such a hard time finding your way. But I love this game. I play it all the time. Take, for example, the time I found Jesus out in the wilderness. Now that was a worthy opponent. I know you all have great reverence for him. The whole both God and man thing really stirs up the excitement. But you should look at it from my perspective. I mean, here is the Son of God on my playing field. He is the embodiment of God's message to all of you, and I find him wandering around without any food or water or protection in the middle of the wilderness. Can you imagine catching your greatest adversary completely unprepared? To say I was excited to play the game with him would be a gross understatement. This is the very thing for which I exist. Naturally, I came with my best tricks. You see, there is no question that the divine aspect of Jesus would be able to turn me back. But the human aspect, you humans are so susceptible. You can rarely resist my three finest temptations: satisfying your bodies, protecting your bodies, and giving yourselves power. So I started with the easiest. After all, when you are the devil, it doesn't take much to bake a loaf of hot and fresh bread. I could hear his stomach rumbling even before I was near him. His body ached to be satisfied by food. His limbs drooped with exhaustion. He was in need of sustenance, and I was so happy to help him find his way to it. So I invited him to take care of himself. If you are the Son of God, tell those stones to become bread. You see what I did there? I played the divine right against the human. After all, the other side has a long history of providing bread to humans. So what's a little bit of manna from on high for the Son of God? That's totally in his repertoire. What a shot. Let that divine aspect satisfy the human one. Let him admit that his human needs were more important than any divine guidance or power he had. Impressive. But Jesus turned to me with defiance in his tired eyes and said, "One does not live by bread alone." What is this foolishness? I could have screamed, one of my best traps, foiled by that dusty book Deuteronomy. How could he even quote scripture in the state he was in? But as the darkness of the wilderness hung around him like the hunger in his body, it seemed to give him a clarity about what the divine was capable of doing in the midst of human scarcity. This was my playing field, the wilderness, and it seemed to be strengthening his trust in God. This called for a dramatic change in tactics. If I couldn't get him to satiate his body, I was going to threaten the whole thing. I pulled him to the top of the temple. So there we were at the very top and center of the religious power, and I made sure he knew that I was willing to let him fall. Yes, if he wasn't willing to call upon the other side to come and save him, to his death he would plummet, and for the whole world to see. Now was the perfect moment to employ my favorite part of the game, quoting scripture. So I taunted him. "Command some angels, save your skin, oh, the scandal!" And yet, as the wind howled around us, 30 cubits from the ground, he plainly replied, "Do not put the Lord your God to the test." Again, with Deuteronomy. Oh, he was good. Scripture for scripture. No fear in the face of certain death. This is how the game is meant to be played. Now, I must admit, I was becoming a bit flummoxed at this point. After all, the greater the danger, the quicker you humans will try to make the other side bend to your will. But again, the danger only seemed to heighten his trust. So it was time for the last round. If I couldn't tempt him into losing with the weakness of his human aspect, then I would inspire it with glory. It was important to set the stage. You see, the other side loves mountains, always choosing them to talk to prophets and leaders. So I took Jesus to the top of a mountain. I took him up there and I showed him cities and palaces. I showed him armies and crowds. And I showed him all the signs of power that you humans seem so eager to get your hands on. And with those sparkling in his eyes, I played my best trick. Power, accolades, the world at his fingertips. No human would be able to resist that offer. Trust me, I have been brokering deals since the dawn of time, and I still make them today. Don't believe me? Well, that's easy. Look at those in power around you. Integrity, family, love, friends. You animals would trade it all just to feel like you were in control. All Jesus had to do was quit playing for the other side and join my winning team. Worship the Lord your God and serve only Him. Gosh, do you like Deuteronomy that much? I know I don't. But he was relentless. He never wavered. He never doubted. With the glory of the world before him, he turned his back on it and returned to the wilderness. Hungry and tired, faced with death, he chose to return to all of that instead of joining my team. Gosh, that was around for the ages. I played the game so well. My favorite tactics, gluttony, fear, power, and even scripture, failed me. Jesus could not be swayed. And now I'm being, well, what do you people like to call it? Gracious with my small defeat. But before you gloat about Jesus' victory over me, you must remember that he was no ordinary opponent. He has a connection with the other side that you can barely understand. He knew how to trust my eternal opponent, even when he was stranded in the wilderness and faced with my best game. Perhaps that's where I went wrong. I have always assumed that the wilderness was my space, a place where humans can be made to feel all their weaknesses and mortality. But the other side seems to be out there in the scarcity and hunger as well. Could it be that you animals can learn to trust the other side like Jesus? Could it be that the wilderness can also be a place where you learn to thrive in the face of all the delightful pain and suffering the world can deliver? Could it stop your ears from hearing scripture twisted for personal gain? Ugh, terrifying thoughts. But don't you worry, I'm not. There are many more games to be played. And until then, which will be soon for the record, I like what you've done with the place. I'll be sure to visit often and see how you guys are coming along. After all, I'm always looking for some more worthy opponents.
Thank you, Bree. Hopefully that gives you something to think about. Or perhaps hear a story in a different way than you've heard it before. Thanks for listening to the Lord of Life Lutheran Church Sermon Podcast. If you're ever in the Dubuque-land area, please join us for worship. Visit our website at www.lordoflife.online to learn more about service times and about our vision for serving God and our community. God bless you.